Hello, Dr. Aazir. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, globally, renewable energy adoption has accelerated over the past decade. How is Pakistan positioned in this transition compared to other countries, especially in South Asia?
This is a very good, I think it's a very good starting question because South Asia has adapted to renewable energies faster. I mean, just countries like India, Vietnam, and Bangladesh together have built the capacity more than all the globe in the 1990s. So we could say that the competition is tough. So if we look a bit at the South Asian market, um, the biggest player in that is India, and they've gone up to 180 gigawatts, which is quite high values. Smaller countries like Vietnam have gone up to 15 gigawatts of renewable energy in their grid system. Bangladesh has done a very small scheme, just similar to Pakistan, but more microfinancing, where they have millions of houses which are like being solarized themselves. And Sri Lanka, for example, has um, infused a lot of wind energy into their grid. So the competition is tough. But when it comes to Pakistan, we see and we hear, and this is the general, um, the consensus that, oh, we have a lot of solar panels that have suddenly come up and everything. And it's visible. We're talking about it. The governments are talking about it. People are talking about it and all. Um, that is all good, but it's not the complete picture. Um, we do have a lot of capacity, and we do have a lot of, we've got the environment for solar, for wind, for hydro. We have the environments for them. We have, like a big installation potential, but the utilization is still very low. And the reason for that is that we're concentrating a lot on the generation side of things. So, I mean, you'd understand that when this question is asked, how does Pakistan compare when it comes to generation deployment and when it comes to having the technology of the panels? We're quite good. I mean, it was getting cheaper. We're importing a lot of these solar panels and everything. But when it comes to actual utilization of it, its inception into the grid, or its, any financial frameworks on and how policies are built around it, we're quite seriously lacking in that aspect when it comes to our brothers in the rest of the South Asia. Um, I'd say in this current scenario, Pakistan is playing more of a bottom-up scenario, just like it started off with the CNG era back in the early 2000s, that you had private people putting these up, and you had a lot of generation, and you had a lot of CNG kits at that time. But it's not being integrated well, it's not being utilized, and quite truthfully, it's not even being reported correctly. If you ask how much is Pakistan generating, you'll get so many different answers, and um, I think that's where, compared to the rest of South Asia, we're lacking quite a bit. Um, According to NICA, we have about 6 gigawatts of installed, and some on grid, off grid in rural areas and everything. But these estimates are anywhere between 6 or 50 to some people say, but that's the thing. So I would say uh, we're quite good. We're progressing on the installation side, but we're not progressing as much as we should on the utilization side of things.
Now, you also, while you were talking about this, you touched upon solar. So, I have a question regarding that as well. That, Pakistan has abundant sunlight throughout the year, right? So, what are the
Hmm.
main challenges you think in scaling up solar power projects here, and how do they compare to countries that have, successfully leveraged solar, like India or Morocco?
Okay. I'll start with a very interesting quote that I've always, it's always funny. And this was told to me, and it was that the sun is not the problem, certainty is. So Pakistan is, I mean, I would, if I put it very, very, very lightly, I would say we've got super sunlight. We can compare our the amount of irradiation that we get. I mean, that means how much energy we can get from the sun. It's comparable to places like Rajasthan in India, which is very high.
Very good, yeah.
Yeah, so we're high in that thing. Um, but again, we have this problem, and I think this trifecta of things is going to pop up quite a bit um, on when we talk about any of these renewable energies, even when we talk about transition from coal and gas into any of these renewable energy sources. The main thing about it is that even though we have so much potential for the sun with the sun and everything, it's still the generation side, like in the previous question, we said yes, we're totally good, but incorporating that system into the grid, meaning giving the grid flexibility that it can take in or take out any of this solar based energy that we're using. That's one of the big challenges that Pakistan is facing and will be facing for quite a while until we change some policies in that thing. So for example, even if we put in, let's say we have a big desert area and we have a lot of area where we have 320 days of sun. If we put solar panels like big solar farms over there, it's still the problem of getting that to the actual load areas, like the cities. I mean, we have three or four really big cities like Lahore, Faisalabad, Karachi, Islamabad, Sialkot, where a lot of energy is used. Unless we can find a way to put these farms around it, the transmission is the problem. So one, getting it into the grid and how flexible that is a main issue. And the second one is how do we transmit all of this super energy, like I said, to the people who are going to be using it. And third is that what is the financial cost of it at a macro level? So yes, we all are putting solar panels on our houses and everything when it comes to individuals, but when it comes to a macro level where a government would want to implement this thing, there's a lot more problems. So when you talked about India and Morocco, they've it's not just the solar panels that they put over there. They've got a few more things going for them. Let's put it that way. Um, when it came to, let's say, India, they were in the same situation that Pakistan is in right now, and that's a good, example that we can use. What India did well was reduce the risk of these projects, like what that means is that they put in they auctioned off these things. They put in their own sovereign, credibility online for these things. They accelerated the deployment and all, which accelerated this thing and reduced the cost of all of these of their implementation of this thing. And what Morocco did is even more interesting. I think it was called the Noor complex. I believe I've just written it down here. Over there, what they've done is that they've used not only solar panels, which is like photovoltaic panels, but they also have large solar thermal gathering things, which like using the sunlight, they actually heat up a body of water or something, so that they can generate electricity not only in the day but also in the nighttime. So when you come up with those examples, they've got few more interesting things which they've added on to that thing. Which if Pakistan looks in their direction, I think those challenges can be superseded quite well when we come to it.
Absolutely. And Pakistan does have a lot of, potential, not just when it comes to solar, but when it comes to other energy sources as well. So coming to wind energy, wind energy also seems very promising, especially in coastal and, desert regions. How feasible is large-scale wind energy in Pakistan, and what lessons can we learn from countries like Denmark or China in integrating wind into the national grid? This
Quite
has to be
proudly,
the
I can.
next question after solar.
No, it's brilliant. No, because the quite proudly I could say that when it comes to wind, we also have the capacity is brilliant. I might mess up this pronunciation, but the Garo Jinkar Jinpir region, it's a corridor of about 180 kilometers by about 76 kilometers, in which you have winds which are constantly of about 7 to 8 meters per second, which is really brilliant for that. And the potential which some people are saying for this region is about 50 to 60 gigawatts, which is quite high. So yeah, I mean, again, when it comes to wind, just like solar, we've been blessed. But again, I'll come to the trifecta of a bit of where we're lacking again when it comes to the wind is that this corridor, maybe we can supply to Karachi and to some areas, but supplying to the actual areas where we need this thing, that becomes a problem because of the problems we have with transmission. Again and again, I keep on coming up back to transmission that and it's interesting that there's a quote I read somewhere that you know generation. Oh wait, I think I might have written it somewhere. It was like that generation is is a lovely word, and it's visible and it's really good, but transmission is hidden and it's much more critical than generation. So that's the same problems that we have. You talked about uh, Denmark. Yes, let's say, yeah. Denmark's the reason why they're doing very well. Obviously, they've also got a good wind system and everything. Is that they have put in the flexibility in their grid. That their wind system, the energy that they generate from the wind is very quick for them. They can switch it on and off very quickly. That's what I mean by flexibility. So when there's, perfect wind and everything, it can switch up really quickly and start supplying to the grid, which is flexible enough to incorporate in. But when the wind gets too fast and you have to slow these winds turbines down, and that's when it comes to wind, we think, oh, the more the wind, the better, it'll just, rotate faster. But unfortunately, that's not really how it works. There's a limit of how fast you can have these fans rotate and how much you can generate. So if it goes below the wind, you lose power. And if it goes beyond that thing, most of the time you have to actually shut it down. So having the reason why Denmark is doing very well, that they've been able to start up and shut down very quickly. Their flexibility is really good, and they've been you know able to mix it with other systems. That means that they've been able to supply it not just to one area through one transmission, but to several sources at the same time. The same thing is with the United Kingdom. They generate, I believe it's about to 50% now of their energy through wind. And and they have a different reason of why they're doing very well is because um, they've made a competitive market. They use the financial side of things, and they made a competitive market for auctions of these wind generations and all, and um, how they price these transmissions to be so much more cheaper than other sources. So um, that's and Germany has a similar system for that one. Um, that's the problem what Pakistan will face to use this wind generation. That is that um, we, again, we have the capacity, but we treat it as like a add-on. We say, oh, you know what, let's add it on to the grid and we'll grid produce go. It'll just, take care of it. But I mean, that's the wrong attitude that we have to do. We have to actually um, take this wind corridor or wherever we wind and plan it like a system, like a very well-developed system, like we did for hydro and everything. So for Pakistan, I mean, uh, to sum it up, we treat it like an add-on. Like, oh yeah, oh, 50 gigawatts. Hey, we've got this extra, but it's not just that. We need the transmission. We need the flexibility in the grid to take it in. We need it to be cheaper than others because the initial cost of wind is higher. But like I said, the UK did it well through their options and everything. And um, I think it's a market that we can do, but it's not the technology. I think it's the system that's stopping us from getting there.
100% I agree with you. I think there's so many other things that, we have to take into consideration. And the transmission is one of the biggest challenges that, Pakistan actually faces. Now, coming
Right.
to hydropower, hydropower has also been a traditional source of renewable energy for Pakistan. And considering climate change and water scarcity, how sustainable are current and planned, hydropower projects?
Okay. Hydropower, we've grown up knowing that's the backbone of our energy. I mean, um, thermal and coal-based and all these IPPs came much later, but we grew up knowing that it's all going to be um, hydropowers and everything. We have a very large capacity for hydropower, but when it comes to it's an interesting point of it is that there's always this um, let's say discussion: is hydropower actually renewable or not? And us and the arguments for it is that yes, it's because it's water, and Pakistan has a source of water that is coming from the north, so we should and can call it renewable. But on the other side, it's impacted by climate, just like you started the discussion was by so much that it's very difficult to call it renewable and constant. So when it comes to Pakistan, our hydro system was developed to be stable. I think people would remember on TV they used to say, "Oh, the level is at this much, so we have more power. The level is lower, so we have less power, and we have the load shedding and everything." So it was a very fixed system around very fixed transmission around very thing. But it's not fixed anymore because of climate change. We're saying that we're getting more and more glaciers which are melting. So with that, we suddenly have a very, very high time in which we have suddenly a lot of water coming, and it's so much that we can't even control it. But then it's the next phase is a very, very long frame phase where there's drought. So it's not that nice and simple level, build that we designed it around that we'll have constant things with some changes in height and everything. So it's much more. It's actually one of the most vulnerable to climate change, like you started this question with. However, all is not lost. There's a lot of methodologies and ways that other countries have done that. Norway has a good hydropower system. And the interesting way they use their hydropower is they kind of use it like a battery. So what they do is that uh, uh, so what I mean by that is that they've got it very flexible. When they use their hydropower to assist their wind and solar generation. So instead of their hydropower being like having to be fixed and to give a certain number of gigawatts, let's put it that way, they they assist the solar and their wind generation by when wind goes down, and that means that the market is going to have a problem because it get expensive. They can flow their hydro power into that thing and balance it out. So this terminology called balancing is a really key point in all of when I talk about flexibility, that your grid is providing a certain amount and suddenly it goes down. You want these renewable energies, just like hydro, solar, and wind that we said, but it needs to be able to, come in at a rate where it does not disrupt the grid itself. So if the grid goes down in its capacity, these energies should be quick to replace it, but it shouldn't be not that quick that the whole grid gets shaken up. This is an example that is given by professors at Dr. Fayaz, and also I always like it. They say that it has to come fast enough, but not that fast that it shakes everything up. There's a few other. I think I've written a few other countries down. Ethiopia is an interesting country that I found out when it comes to hydro, because they designed it um, around their climate modeling. So it's not a fixed percentage going high and up, but they know year round that this is what it's going to provide, and they made it enough that it can store enough for when they know it's not going to be enough, and use it when it is. And the plan that they have, which is very similar to what Norway also does, is to provide the same energy from their hydro to other countries as well. So, for example, Ethiopia plans to send it to Sudan and to other countries, and Norway's I think goes to Germany, and it goes to some to UK and even the Netherlands. Its future is good if we add in a lot of let's say the climate, it's the what climate is doing to the water levels and everything. We need that to be programmed in. We need to reduce that volatility and be a bit more, again, gonna use the same words, flexible, grid flexible and balanced when it comes to that thing. And again, another quote this quote I did read. I was given it to me by ChatGPT, but I think it took it from somewhere because it sounds something like which would be done by some Sufi points and everything. But they say that rivers, they're very violent when they're young, but they're very fragile when they're old. So that's the same thing about I mean, our hydro system, that our rivers are also changing, and um, it becomes very, very important for us to protect this system.
Absolutely. And I think we learned that this year as well.
Yes,
When the floods came, like we learned that, you can't outsmart like nature. Nature will always, find its path, and rivers do not forget their path. I think we learned that, especially when it came to River Ravi in Lahore. So
that
now coming down to the policy side, what policy frameworks or incentives are missing in Pakistan that have been critical to renewable energy growth in countries like Germany or the UAE?
I'll build up that little triangle trifecta of mine, that when it comes to how do you get how do you make renewable energies work? You have the generation side where you generate it. You have the flexibility and balancing side inside the grid, so that it comes and is absorbed by the grid and being able to transmit it. And the third side, which I mean, we haven't talked too much, but it's still very important, is the financing side of it. How do you finance all of this thing? Renewable energy is only going to be wide scale if it remains cheap. Um, the consumers, we all have gone into solar because one, because of necessity because we used to have load shedding, but in rural areas where you don't have the grid, reaching them, for them it's very important to have solar or hydro power, wind power. Um, so so those are the markers that we really need to work on. Um, you added a few countries. Um, let's look at some of these countries, and let's look at the aspects of those three triangles that they've taken over. You don't have to. I mean, what I'm trying to say is you don't have to be perfect in all three of these: the generation, the flexibility, and the thing. You can build on one, and then the rest, follow in. So, for example, for Germany. Um, Germany had a system where it started auctioning off their it made it more of a community based system where people could um, create their own energy and sell it or buy it however they would. So that was more of the financial incentive side where people were able to take care of their energy and everything. UAE, on the other hand, went completely utility side. So just like Pakistan went utility side with their hydro, they went the utility side. Instead of making it into smaller areas, they went into larger, solar farms, just like India has done. But they backed it up with like 25 years, sovereign credibility and creditworthiness. So um, Germany was able to make it affordable that smaller communities were able to implement it and utilize it inside themselves. Whereas UAE it so made it so much incentivized to people to come and invest into that thing that they made it cheaper that way. So you have like two different ways of how do you make it cheap. And UK has another interesting way. What they do is it's called they price it in such a way. I'll explain it. It's called a CPD, but I'll explain how it works. Is that yeah? So basically, what we need, I mean, technology is not the problem. Our problem is how do we, fix, is the policy. Pakistan has come up with two policies. One is called the CTBCM, where they're trying to auction off and allow corporates and companies to be able to, deal in energy directly. And there's an IGSEP, which is a system where they're trying to, add in all. So in short, we need a lot more, policy development, and that's the main stopping point of this.
Like you just mentioned, that in short, we need a lot of policy development. And I think Pakistan
R-
has a long way to go when it comes to this. And it's
Right.
time that, we actually sit down and make some policies with amazing incentives for the citizens as well. Because climate change is something that we're facing every year. And we need to start depending on other, energy sources, and we need to actually tap into our potential. And that can only be possible by collaborating with all the strategic partners. Thank you so
That's
much, Dr. Aazir, for your brilliant insights.